Most people don't realize that cheating rarely begins with desire. It begins with a feeling that something inside is missing, unnoticed, or quietly fading. Psychology explains why infidelity often shows up not at moments of passion, but at moments of inner conflict. By the end of this discussion, you will understand why cheating happens even in relationships that look stable from the outside. You'll see what is happening in the human brain, how emotional needs quietly shift, and why infidelity is often less about sex and more about identity, validation, and control. This perspective is not about justifying betrayal, but about understanding it clearly. At its core, cheating is a response to unmet psychological needs. Humans are wired to seek connection, significance, and emotional safety. When these needs feel threatened or ignored, the mind looks for ways to restore balance. Sometimes that search happens outside the relationship, long before a conscious decision is made. One of the strongest drivers of cheating is validation. Feeling desired, admired, or chosen activates deep reward systems in the brain. Dopamine is released not just from physical attraction, but from secrecy, anticipation, and novelty. This chemical response can feel powerful, especially when everyday life feels predictable or emotionally flat. Think about how people behave at work when they feel overlooked. They may seek recognition elsewhere, switch teams, or quietly disengage. Relationships follow a similar pattern. When someone feels invisible at home, attention from another person can feel like oxygen rather than temptation. Another key factor is identity. Over time, people change, but relationships often struggle to adjust to those changes. Cheating can emerge when someone feels trapped in an outdated version of themselves. The affair becomes less about the other person and more about reclaiming a lost sense of self. Psychology shows that secrecy itself can be intoxicating. Hiding something creates a sense of autonomy and control. For someone who feels constrained by expectations or routines, secrecy can feel like freedom. The brain interprets this as empowerment, even though it often leads to long-term damage. Pause for a moment and ask yourself this: is it possible that what people call temptation is actually a response to emotional starvation? That question alone shifts how infidelity is understood. Cheating also connects to attachment patterns formed early in life. People who learned that love is inconsistent or conditional may seek reassurance repeatedly. Even in committed relationships, they may feel an underlying fear of abandonment. Cheating becomes a way to soothe that fear without directly addressing it. Importantly, this does not mean all cheating stems from childhood wounds. It means that past experiences shape how people respond to emotional discomfort. When communication feels risky, indirect behavior often takes its place. Stress plays a role as well. During periods of high pressure, the brain seeks relief. An affair can feel like an escape from responsibility, conflict, or self-doubt. It creates a temporary space where someone feels lighter, seen, and unburdened. Notice how often cheating begins during life transitions. New jobs, aging, loss, or major changes can trigger identity uncertainty. In those moments, attention from someone new can feel grounding, even stabilizing in the short term. There is also a common myth that people cheat because they're unhappy with their partner. Psychology challenges this idea. Many people who cheat report satisfaction in their relationship. The dissatisfaction often exists within themselves rather than within the partnership. This is where cognitive dissonance appears. The mind holds two conflicting truths at once. Someone can love their partner and still cheat. To reduce the discomfort of this contradiction, the brain creates justifications. It downplays consequences and magnifies momentary rewards. Ask yourself this: if cheating were truly about the other person, why do affairs often end once they become real and routine? The excitement fades when secrecy and novelty disappear. Another important factor is power. Cheating can create a sense of leverage. Knowing something your partner does not can feel like control. This is especially true for people who feel powerless in other areas of life. Power doesn't always look aggressive. Sometimes it shows up quietly as emotional independence. The affair becomes a private world where the person feels dominant over their own narrative. Technology has amplified these dynamics. Constant access to attention, validation, and flirtation lowers the barrier between thought and action. Emotional affairs can begin without physical contact, yet activate the same reward circuits in the brain. Social norms also shape behavior. In environments where infidelity is normalized or joked about, the psychological barrier lowers. The brain uses social proof to justify actions it might otherwise resist. Still, none of this removes personal responsibility. Psychology explains behavior, but it does not excuse harm. Understanding why cheating happens is about prevention, clarity, and healing, not justification. A surprising insight is that many people cheat during moments of emotional closeness rather than distance. When vulnerability increases, so does fear. Intimacy can trigger the urge to escape, especially for those uncomfortable with deep emotional exposure. Cheating can also be a form of indirect communication. Instead of expressing dissatisfaction, anger, or unmet needs, the behavior speaks for them. It's a destructive language, but a language nonetheless. Reflect on this. What might change if people learned to recognize emotional discomfort earlier before it turned into secrecy or betrayal? Healing after infidelity often focuses on trust, but psychology suggests identity repair is just as important. Both partners must understand what the behavior was compensating for. Without that insight, patterns often repeat. For the person who is betrayed, understanding these dynamics does not remove the pain, but it can restore a sense of clarity. Cheating is rarely about inadequacy in the betrayed partner. It's about unresolved needs in the one who cheated. For the person who cheated, real growth begins with honesty towards themselves, not just about what they did, but why they needed it. Without that self-awareness, guilt turns into avoidance rather than change. At a deeper level, cheating reflects the human struggle between stability and novelty. The brain craves safety, but it also craves stimulation. Healthy relationships learn to balance both through communication, growth, and shared meaning. The absence of novelty is not a failure of love, it's a signal to evolve together. When that signal is ignored, the mind may seek novelty alone. Consider how many conflicts could be avoided if emotional needs were spoken before they became secrets. Psychology consistently shows that clarity reduces destructive behavior. In the end, cheating is not a mystery driven by temptation alone. It's a pattern shaped by emotional needs, brain chemistry, identity, and context. When these forces align under stress, infidelity becomes more likely. Understanding this reframes the conversation. It moves it away from shame and towards awareness. Awareness doesn't guarantee loyalty, but it dramatically improves the chance of it. If this perspective challenged how you've thought about infidelity, take a moment to reflect on your own experiences or observations. Understanding human behavior is not about judging others, but about seeing patterns clearly. You're invited to share your thoughts, reflect on what stood out, and continue exploring how psychology shapes everyday choices. Awareness is often the first step towards healthier relationships and more conscious decisions.